Okay, well, I think we're live, so hopefully those of you who are watching at home can hear us. A very good evening to you and welcome to the watering hole. The watering hole, that's what we're calling these evening events that we've been doing. We're from Cornerstone Church, Abergavenny. If you don't know me, or you might not recognize me if you've seen some of the other watering holes, because normally I'm the one that's behind the scenes. But this week I've been put in front of the camera. So it's great to be with you this evening. My name is James and I work here in the church in Cornerstone. This evening we're joined by a special guest, Lloyd, who's here with us to talk about the topics of identity, acceptance and performance. And as we talk this evening, you're able to join in the conversation. So if anything we say this evening has raises any questions for you, you want to join in, you want to add something or ask a question, a clarification about anything, any of the issues that we discuss this evening, then you're welcome to join in. You can join in by going to slido.com, S-L-I-D-O, slido.com, and typing in the code 448102. 448102. And hopefully that will be on the screen throughout the time that you're watching this evening. So you're more than welcome to join in. And at the end, we'll give some time over to answer any questions that you might have. So without further ado, let me introduce Lloyd to you. Lloyd, I want you to tell us where you're living now, what family you've got, what you do for a job. But before that, can you please tell our lovely viewers what you were up to yesterday? Because I hear that you were doing something quite fun yesterday.
Yeah. Great to be with you, James. Thanks for the invite. So yesterday was a unique day. During lockdown, it's been hard to try and be creative in ways to have some good daytime and marriage time with my wife. So yesterday we spent it filming on Bargain Hunt. So come into your screens in maybe 3 to 5 months' time. But yeah, me and my wife with the red team yesterday, filming near Leicester, so it was good fun.
You'll have to tell us if you won or not, or have we got to wait?
You'll have to. Yeah, can't disclose. Yeah, can't give any early sneak previews away.
Okay, well, I'm sure our viewers are very much big Bargain Hunt fans, and that we'll all be keeping our eyes very much peeled for that one. But yeah, so you've mentioned that you've got a wife. Tell us more about your family and what you're doing now.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so me and Chloe, one wife. Chloe, and we're currently living in Hereford, and we moved up last summer. Chloe was starting a Bible college course, and then myself, I work part-time for an organisation called Christians in Sport, and then part-time then was working for a church here in Hereford. A year is almost up now in July, so with everything online and a lot of things changing, we are heading back to Wales after July. So, but it's been a great year. We've loved Hereford actually, and we've grown a lot.
That's great. Well, yeah, I was going to say you don't sound like you're from Hereford, so it's good to know that you're coming back to Wales. So you said that you work for an organisation called Christians in Sport. So from that, can we say that you're someone who's always been interested in sport and that you've always been a Christian from when you were a child?
Well, always been interested in sport, James, but I haven't always had a love for Jesus. That came a bit later on. I started rugby 6 years old for Glynneath. That's how I was brought up. So I remember my dad taking me as a 6-year-old boy to Glynneath Rugby Club. And yeah, I've always loved rugby, always loved sport. My dad and my mum, they were Christians. Brought up in a Christian family, but yeah, it was a lot later on before my love of Jesus became greater than my love of rugby. But yeah, I spent many good years playing rugby in Glynneath, right up until seniors.
Great. So I think you said to me before that growing up where you did, it was either rugby or rugby. They were the options on offer to a young kid. Is that right?
Yeah. For those that don't know where Glynneath is, small little village, so not much options in terms of anything. But yeah, there was rugby and I did enjoy. And I suppose growing up there, you go to school there, your friends are there, you play rugby there. I suppose for me, that's where, growing up as a small kid, you're forming your identity, something we want from being a young child right through till adulthood, isn't it? We look to be accepted by others, and And I suppose that's what kind of started it in that sporting environment in Gleneath Rugby Club. I really found I fitted there. I found that I was accepted, in that kind of community. And also from a young age, I suppose it brought competitiveness and this performance drive as well, because that's what comes with sport, isn't it? Yes, we play to enjoy, but there's a performance mentality. There's nothing better than coming off that field and someone praising you, and it gives you a big lift. So yeah, early on, James, them kind of three things we'll be speaking about tonight, I can see how they were forming slowly, really.
Yeah. So tell us more about growing up and school, and then as you continue to move on into the big wide world, tell us more about that in your life.
Yeah, great. Well, yeah, mum and dad brought me up in church, went to Sunday school, and I went to church with them on a Sunday. And like I said, started playing rugby at 6. And then I think it was under 11s or under 12s. There was a transition then where rugby games were played on a Sunday morning. So dad and mum gave me the choice whether I wanted to go to church or play rugby. And I was thankful for the choice, because I chose to play rugby. And it was at that point really that going into secondary school, rugby games on a Sunday, where I kind of chose to get involved in that. And secondary school, again, a different world, isn't it? You look to get accepted in a bigger school with bigger crowds of people. I firmly kind of fitted in the sporting scene and in the rugby scene. Spent a lot of secondary school really with sport as a primary love, girls becoming a new focus, church really wasn't something that I attended or went to through kind of secondary school, but at 16 I left school after GCSEs. So my last GCSE on a Thursday, and on the Monday actually I started working in the local coal mine in Gleneath. So as a stereotype through my life, I'm slowly ticking all the Welsh stereotypes, rugby to start, and then teenager in the mines. I started an electrical apprenticeship at Aberpergon Colliery. And that's where I think things started to change a little bit. 16, I was out of this, school bubble, which I loved. I loved school. I was good in school. Loved, like I said, loved the kind of opportunities you had in sport. And other opportunities it brought. And then at 16 just went into a man's world, I suppose, went into a working environment down the mines. Things shifted. I had to start thinking differently, and all of a sudden, it was a big transition. You go from like the oldest kids in school to feeling like you run the show. You don't really, but going into the mines as an apprentice, very aware that you don't run the show anymore. And chopsy little teenager, there's no dinner ladies to break up any fights underground when an older guy wants to give you a slap.
I was going to say, I think when you're in school, even if you're not one of the biggest guys on the rugby pitch, you're probably one of the biggest guys in the school, but then you go down the mine and then that's probably less the case, isn't it? And
it was another kind of shift, speaking about identity, acceptance, performance. In school, like I said, I fitted in the rugby scene. I was still playing rugby for Gleneath. It was, I suppose that was my group then. That's where I felt I belonged. I fitted in. I was accepted then. And then you go and work in the mines, and you're starting off as an apprentice. Don't have a clue, about anything. And it's a question of identity again. Well, who am I then in this new environment, in this new, culture, in this new kind of group, amongst a new group of people? You're looking to be accepted. And I think that's when I first really started questioning, is this almost a life template that we're given? Almost my school days are done. I've started work, I suppose, down the line, I look to find a wife, settle down. And was this kind of the treadmill or the template of life? And at that point I was really looking, I suppose, for purpose. This new space I was in, how do I fit in? And it is at that point that I started going back to church youth. They used to run a youth club a great leader of a local church at the time, Peter Lewis, was really influential in my life. You know, it was a pain in the backside probably for him at the time, asking loads of questions. But it's then that I was like, right, you know, I think I was just driving for purpose. I wanted to know that I was doing something purposeful. There was a plan more than just kind of this template of life. And it's in that early few years, first and second year of starting in the mines, that I remember hearing, you know, about a God that has a plan and purpose for my life. And I suppose that's my earliest kind of, memory of kind of going, oh, that's something I really want to kind of, you know, nail my colours to, really. I love the idea that there's a God that has a plan for me, that's got a purpose for me. It's sitted better than the alternative that we just exist and we just go through these motions of life. And so that's 16, 17, that's when I really started querying, asking questions, and really kind of would have probably identified myself back there then as, I think I believe in God. I like this idea there's a plan and purpose for my life. And then I soon kind of discovered then, as you go on that journey, oh, right, you know, there's the mine, there's the church you're now involved in, there's the rugby you're still involved in, all different worlds, all different cultures, all probably accept you differently. And that was really formative then in who am I to be in these different areas, and struggled with that, you know, through the later teens, in probably being who I needed to be for them different environments, performing on the sports field to be accepted there, because, you know, my identity was wrapped up in that, trying to perform in work and be accepted there. And, you know, my identity was defined, you know, a little then by what I did. And in that church period then, probably performing by trying to uphold some good standards for the church community, you know, to gain acceptance in what you thought was the right way, because a little bit of your identity is being formed there. So that was really kind of quite challenging in that kind of 16 to 19 period, starting to be involved in them 3 different groups.
I guess you could almost end up like you've got those 3 worlds, and there's almost 3 versions of yourself between the rugby club and down the mines Monday to Friday or whatever it is, and then in the church on Sunday or whatever your youth group is. You're kind of a different version of yourself and trying to perform in different ways in the different places to get that acceptance that you're looking for.
No, absolutely. You know, you look back now and you think, oh, you probably hurt some people and were hurt by people, and you're figuring things out, and doing what you think's right. But it was then at that kind of 18, 19 age, James, where a lot of these things I placed my identity in, kind of what I do. You know, I was working in the mines at the time. What I had, you know, I had a real great, you know, kind of rugby pathway at that time. You know, really enjoyed playing for Glenheath. I was fortunate at 18 then to represent, you know, the Ospreys and play for the under-18s there, and go on with the under-20s. You know, signed my first Premiership contract then, coming out to youth 18, so played for Swansea, and that, you know, that was great at that age. You love it. You definitely start to think a bit more about yourself, and then you know, you go, right, this is what I do. You love to say you kind of work in the mines. This is who, and rugby, you love to say who you play for. And then I remember coming to 19. I had a kind of a bad injury at the time, pulled my hamstring, and definitely didn't recover well. And that's the world of sport, isn't it? It's performance based. When you're not performing, it just says, well, next one up. And if that person's performing, that's your value gone for the team, and that's your jersey gone. And finding that hard, you know, normally enjoying kind of normally being pretty kind of confident in team selection, to now that's very different. So that's hitting now on the identity. 2012, the mine closed. So I thought, well, I haven't got rugby in the same way I thought. At least I got my job. And the mine, closed in 2012. I'm going in on a night shift. and just finding out that, gone into kind of liquidation and we were going to be made redundant. So now I haven't got the job anymore. Rugby isn't going in the way probably like every Welsh boy dreams that you're going to go as far as you desire. And then it was at that point in life as well that the family unit broke up and really shook my identity again, you know. Mum and dad broke up, and that was hard to deal, like kind of, oh, this doesn't happen, or why is this happening in a kind of what I thought, you know, as a good Christian family. So yeah, big things rocked me at that time. So everything I'd found my identity in, everywhere I'd kind of looked to get acceptance, were almost stripped away. And I'll be honest, at that point, it was almost like, oh, well, so much for this God that's got a plan and purpose for my life. Because ever since I've tried to take hold of that, it seems that everything has been stripped away and has fallen away. And in my lack of understanding at the time, you know, I really lashed out against God. Fortunately, miners are a rare breed, bit like the lollipop men and women. So we were highly sought after. So when the mine was made redundant in 2012, I actually received a letter and a job offer from a mine up in the northeast of England. So a potash mine under the North Sea. Me and my dad drove up there for an interview. It was a bizarre experience, and it was a fantastic offer, great salary, relocation fee. I was only 20, didn't have nothing much else on the door, so I moved within a week, packed a bag, and I moved to work in a mine up there. And again, back into this cycle, James, of new place, new location. Who am I supposed to be? Seeking acceptance. So you try to be accepted by what you think the new people you're around will accept, and you perform and play up to that. And I certainly did. I loved my experience there, met some great people, great friends, but probably was really lost in that who am I time of life. I was, I suppose, running away with dealing with the hurts that were happening back home, and probably hurting people along the way with that. And just indulged in everything. It was almost like I've never been to university, but that was almost like my blowout. First time out of the village, first time away from any accountability from people that knew me, and just really indulged in that year, James. But, you know, my friends and people around me thought I was probably living the dream. I was 20 and going 21. I had a salary, I bought a house, I was driving a Volvo. I was flying home sometimes after my shifts, just not shifts, so like you do a shift pattern, but I'd fly back to Bristol or Cardiff Airport, get the boys pick me up. You know, thinking, looking back, stupid, thinking you're big time, you know, the boys are just starting uni, thinking you're living the dream. Because I suppose it's the template life gives you, isn't it? You know, work hard, get a job, get as much money as you can, and indulge in everything the world has to offer, and that's happiness. And I suppose on the surface it looked like it, but when you're in the house on your own, I had a lot of money, but didn't have anyone to spend it with, didn't have much time, and I was lost. It was a broken year, really. And I remember coming to a point to going, you know, if people in Wales would talk about me, what would they kind of put to my life? And I suppose they would say I love, you know, Lloyd loves rugby, loves sport, goes to church. If the people up in the north of England asked about Lloyd, I don't know if, rugby might have come up, you know, but definitely that wouldn't. And it was a real point in asking who am I? I'd lost, you know, I just didn't have an identity for myself. I was whoever I needed to be, wherever I was. And there was a few incidences up the mines then, and a few things that just, I suppose, made me think about things, and I wanted out. I wanted out again, and I used to have a good rugby CV. My qualifications kind of would only keep me in that industry, kind of the mines or the oil rigs. So it was always working away. It wasn't going to help this desire to be in community and around people. So I took a stab through a rugby agency, and for a rugby contract, had a CV like you would apply for any job, and I was Christmas shopping December 2013 in Newcastle with a friend, and I had a phone call off a rugby agent. It was a semi kind of professional contract from a club in Australia. They said they're interested, rubbish offer, but I was like, yes, I'll take it. I had to fly out by February for pre-season and sevens, and then get into the season. So I remember phoning Dad, I'm off to Australia. All right, kind of shared the story. And yeah, within a month, I kind of sorted out renting my house up there. Had a farewell party with everyone, and I was on the plane to Australia, 24 hours, and a lot of thinking time. And I remember thinking, I kind of indulged in life and everything it had to offer, and I enjoyed it. I'm not going to say I regret that time. I enjoyed it, but there was an emptiness to it. I knew what it led to, and I kind of thought I blew that opportunity in a way. I had a fantastic salary job, but I used it for self-purpose and self-gain. And I thought, I'm having a second chance here now, almost like another fresh start. And I thought, if one thing I've learned from every season, that I've always been who others maybe, not that they've needed me to be, but I've probably been who I thought they wanted me to be. I've never gone in with a certainty. And I got to Australia, and I just felt, I did know that there was a God that had a plan and purpose me deep down, and it was that maybe, right, I've tried life my way, God, let me try your way. And in that 9 months I was out in Australia, I met some Christian boys that played rugby, that loved sport, loved Jesus, and they were just the same people in any environment. When we were on the beach, they were just great laugh. When we were training, they trained hard. When we played rugby, but when we were out on socials and nights out, they were just the same. And there was just something of that love of Jesus they had, but a kind of certainty of identity that they didn't. Yeah, people accepted them for who they were, not because they were trying to be anything else. And I went along most Fridays to an 18s to 30s thing. I went to church every Sunday, and God really broke down kind of barriers I'd built up in that year, and dealt with a lot of hurt maybe I'd run away from, held a mirror up to my life, and I really realized, James, that it wasn't just that God had a plan and purpose for me, but that I needed God. That this life of seeking acceptance, performing and placing my identity in what I do, what I have, was so fragile, and I was on a roller coaster. And I really understood the love of God for me, and why he sent Jesus, and my need for my relationship with God to be restored. And it's in that year that I really grasped that my identity isn't something I create, but something I receive. And I chose to receive the identity that God gives me. I realized that I'm not accepted by what I do, but I receive acceptance by God through my faith in Jesus Christ. And I've still, performance wise, because of my sporting nature, I think at times I have fallen into, okay, well, sport is all about performance. When you do well, things go well for you. When you do bad, they go bad. And I think carried a bit of that then into my understanding of living for Jesus, that I have to perform for him. So a lot of that is, over the last few years then, is understanding that no, Jesus isn't like my coach. He's not watching my day-to-day performances and then analysing me and not picking me when I'm doing bad, or really praising me when I'm doing well. But my relationship with Jesus isn't based on my performance, and really learning to just rest in his grace daily, and live for him. So these three areas have been massive for me. I still haven't got it perfect, James, but I've realized that every day it's not about doing more, but receiving more. And, I just come back to that place of surrender every morning, and thankful for the God that calls me by name, and I don't have to do anything to make him accept me, more in that way.
Yeah, that's so helpful. Thank you for sharing that. That knowledge that you can receive an identity that comes from God because of Jesus and his life and death and resurrection for us, as we celebrated last weekend. And a new identity is given to us. We're accepted by him, and our performance doesn't really come into that at all, does it?
Yeah,
that's great. So tell us more. Just link the gap for us now between you're in Australia, you've become a Christian, you've got that new identity. Tie us over to present day working for Christians in sport. Just fill in that blank for us. That'd be great.
Yeah, no problem. So coming to the end of the season in Australia, discussion time whether I stay on and do a second season. What are my options coming back? Really is probably coming back, going into industry, working in the mines, maybe steelworks. That could have been a local pickup, oil rigs. And I suppose, I'm so thankful for them boys, James. They, the way that they just loved me to Jesus, they just showed what a life for Jesus really looked like. And there was something in me stirring to go, I wish I kind of had that around me growing up in the culture of rugby. That you can be, fully engaged in the world of sport, but fully living for Jesus at the same time. There doesn't need to be conflict between them two worlds. And so I was like, there's something we got. I'd love to come back home really and be what them boys were to me, someone that just shared life and shared Jesus with me, on that journey. So I got hold of Christians in Sport from Australia actually, and done a kind of Skype. It would have been back then. I don't think Zoom was very well known. And just chatted it through, chatted what was going on, chatted kind of my heart, and what love to come back and be involved in sport. Like I said, my two loves were sport, but there was a love for Jesus now, and something in me that just when I come back to Wales and share that. So I came back, had a kind of chat to Christian in Sport. They were sharing about the internship program they do, a year's training based in Bicester, where the kind of offices are. But again, kind of being a Welshie, I'd had enough of a season away. It was home where I knew that's the people I relate to and connect with. And I said to Christian Sport, kind of being in Oxford, I might as well be in Australia. It's not home, and it's nicer weather in Australia. So it was 2015 that Christian Sport actually done a kind of guinea pig year with me, and I'd done a regional internship. Done 1 day a week at Highfields Church in Cardiff, doing a kind of like the ministry training program they used to do 1 day a week. And then the rest of my time then with Tom Hockin, who was a Christian Sport regional worker at the time, and shadowed him and grew off him. I'd done an internship 2015. 2016, Christian Sport as an organisation actually decentralised and started a new regional initiative placing workers on the ground, and I suppose that door just naturally opened for me. Tom, in his season of life, was having twins and his family was expanding, and there was just a natural conversation then about taking on the regional role in Wales, and that's what I did from 2016 part-time, doing as you do in most areas, doing a lot of youth and university in my first few times. And then most recently now, I do more of the adult work and the elite athlete side in terms of rugby. So over the last 5 years, worked in all the areas that Christian Sport seek to serve, youth, university, adult and elite. So that's kind of the bridge to Christian Sport, James.
Great. That's great. So in a minute, we'll talk a little bit more about being a Christian that does sport and what that looks like. But before that, can I get you just to say a word? Maybe we've got people who are watching this evening that aren't Christians and they're struggling with issues of identity and acceptance. Maybe it's in school or university, with their friendship groups, with their grades, or maybe in the workplace, people looking for their identity and for acceptance and looking to their performance in that. What would you say to those people who are watching this evening who don't know Jesus in that position?
Yeah, great question, James. I think so often, I think what the world tries to define us by and what we maybe default to, I definitely have myself. And for anyone listening, I think sometimes there's a few categories that you might define yourself, or it might be a few of them, but I've definitely kind of pinpointed them down, and over my kind of wrestle with this, people think they define by what they do, defined by what they have, defined by what others think about them, maybe defined by their worst moments, or even defined by their best. And I think, self-definition comes into it at times. I am who I say I am. And what I've experienced is, through my life, maybe I've fallen into some of them stronger, but definitely a lot of them at times where I really get impacted by what other people think about me. I maybe look at some of my darkest moments, think, I'm no better than that, or if everyone knew about that. Or my best moments, I think, I'll never hit that peak again, or, all these things. And what I just encourage people to go, all them things are so fragile. If that's the foundation you're building your life upon, what you do, what you have, what others think about you, these high and low moments, or even self-definition, they fail. They may be steady at times, but they will all fail. So what I'd encourage people to do is really seek to understand who God is and who God says you are. Because once you receive that identity, it's steadfast, it's a firm foundation. And then I get to enjoy the things I do and the things I have. Enjoy some of the things people say about me, but not bothered about maybe other things people say about me, because the fragility of them are not what I'm building my life upon. So I'd really encourage people to really seek a firm foundation for where they're placed in their life. And for me, I believe that is found in Jesus Christ and the gospel.
That's so helpful. Thank you. There's a firm foundation out there that we can all rest upon, and that's Jesus. That's great. Well, in a second, we're going to hopefully watch a little video about Christians in Sport, the organisation that Lloyd works with, and being a Christian that does sport. But before that, let me just remind you that if you have any questions, you can join on slido.com, and then the code is hopefully on your screen now, so you can type that code in and ask any questions that you might have. But we're going to watch a little video for a couple of minutes now while you can log in to Slido. So hopefully that will play for us now.
Let me tell you why we do it. Because we were born to play. Because it's in our blood and in our bones. Because God gave us talents, passions, and opportunities. And when we're playing sport, we know we were made for this. Yet we spoil it. We don't play the way God wants us to. We so often use sport to serve ourselves, to earn love, identity, glory, security, success, approval for ourselves. We rejected God. We try to replace Him and face the consequences. But God loved us and reached out to us through His Son, Jesus, who lived among us, who died for us so we can be forgiven, to free us from our sin. He rose up from death and offers us new life, a new relationship with God for everyone who returns to Him. That's why there's a new way to play. Wherever we are, whatever our sport, We remember God's love for each one of us. We remember the new life He's called us to. And now we play with joy and freedom, the sport we were born to play.
Well, welcome back. Hopefully that video was helpful just to introduce the work of Christians in Sport a little bit more, and Christians in Sport. And so with that in mind, Lloyd, let me ask you another question. What are the challenges of being a Christian in sport? Obviously that's what you do for work. And I'm guessing that when you came back and started working for Christians in Sport, although you weren't doing rugby full time, I guess you carried on playing in your spare time because you just enjoy doing it. So what are the challenges of being a Christian that plays sport?
Yeah, no, thanks, James. And yeah, I suppose, you know, I'm a Christian in sport, not because I work for the organization, but because I'm a Christian in sport, you know, just like yourself. And being a Christian in sport, you know, it does bring up challenges. I think some of the challenges I found coming back, you know, and get involved, like you said, stuck in rugby and things is, yeah, there's not many, you know, I've always been the only Christian in my club or team. There's not many situations. There was one season 2 years ago where, you know, there's two or three of us in the club, which was nice. But I suppose that is the challenge, because you go into a club or team where people are living lives for different purposes. I've got different belief systems, and I suppose you go in there, feeling firm and secure in your identity, but it's definitely an arena that will come to challenge that. I think sport's a great school of discipleship. It's very easy to be a Christian and firm in that when you spend all your life with Christians, but heavens for that. Until then, we're called to worship God and be witnesses for Him. And I think the challenge is that sometimes it is hard, James, because you know you're there, you know you're living differently, you know you're seeking to build a life on a different foundation, and at times there is just, there's a line that others go beyond, and you don't, which can just create a you and them, you know. And I think that's sometimes been the challenge, is as much as you want to, you know, be part of the team, there is just a cut off line where it's different, and that's hard then, you know, because that'll come to challenge, you know, who are you living for, whose acceptance you living for. So yeah, that's the challenge, I suppose, being strong in that.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I can definitely imagine that being a challenge for discipleship. I know just watching rugby on the TV, I can be shouting at the ref from the sofa. So that would definitely be a challenge not to do that on the pitch. That's really helpful. Thank you. And so we've talked a little bit about the challenges that come from being a Christian that plays sport. But what are the good things, and what are the opportunities that being a Christian that does sport offers?
Yeah. Oh, I think the opportunities are almost like that video said, you know, my wife doesn't play sport, or, you know, no ounce of sport in her. She can't, you know, sometimes ask, why do you bother? You know, I moan for about 3-4 days after a game of rugby because I can't move. And I always give her the response to that video start, well, I was born to play. And she's like, oh, don't give me that. But there's something in there, isn't it? That we are made unique, that there's some people watching, and definitely for me and for you, James, that we just love sport. We just do. There's just something the sport does for us. And naturally, there's some people that it does nothing for. But God, in the uniqueness He's given them, there'll be something that gives them a passion, that gets their heart going. So for me, sport is what I've been born to do. You know, I've got a love for it. I've got a drive for it. And when I play sport, you know, it's an amazing moment when I just grasp when I play sport, that's my worship to God. You know, Romans 12 verse 1, you know, to give all of yourself, isn't it? To give all of yourself to God, that's worship. And I think for me, that's the opportunity sport gives. that I get to use the abilities and gifts God's given me. I get to go out and play, and I get to worship God. So first and foremost, I think sport is an amazing arena to worship God with the gifts and passions he's given you. And secondly, what a space to witness. Jesus said, hey, go and make disciples of all nations, of all people groups, and the people group of sport is a massive people group, a massive unreached people group. And God calls us as those who follow him to get involved in a world of sport, if that's the passion and ability God's given you, and be a witness for him. Again, in Romans, not to be ashamed of the gospel, because it's the power of God to salvation. So I think for anyone that has the ability to play sport and that loves Jesus, get involved, because you got to worship Jesus and you got to be a witness for him. And I don't think there's no greater reason than that, is there?
Yeah, that's great. That's so helpful. It's there to be enjoyed, and it's there to so you can share your faith with those friends that you make through it. And I just want to take a little moment at this point to emphasize that you might be sat at home thinking, well, I don't play for a rugby club, or I don't play football or in a team or whatever it is. But whether you might play bowls down the local bowls club, you might just go for a run with a couple of friends who aren't Christians. You might even just have a friend that you go for a walk up the little skirrid or the Sugarloaf with. And those are all things that you can enjoy doing because they're good gifts from God, and they're all opportunities that we have to worship him and to show our love for him, and for us to share our faith with our friends through that as well. So I'd encourage you to think about those things, even if you're not playing for a rugby club or whatever. So that's great. Thanks so much for sharing that, Lloyd. We still got a bit of time, so I want to remind you again that you can join into the Slido, and we've had a few questions through, so if you don't mind, we'll jump in now and get to answering some of those questions. So here's a question to start, Lloyd. Someone said, it's interesting that you went into mining. Must have been one of the last, unless you're much older than you look.
Yeah, great point. Yeah, it's not something, to be honest, I grew up thinking, when I leave school, I want to go in the mines. Something in school you just learn about, in history-wise, isn't it? But in I think it's year 10 or year 11, you do a week's work experience, or we did in the school we were part of. And another time, I remember my parents saying, I need to sort out a week's work experience. Where can I find? I didn't even know there was a mine in my village at the time. My mother went down, and I'd done a week's work experience there, not underground, just on the surface. And they said, well, look, we do offer apprenticeships if you're interested. And that's almost how it came about. I was thinking, well, I liked, kind of electrics at the time. I remember speaking in school, they were more like, no, do your A-levels, go on to university and do it that way. But, my parents were like, well, an apprenticeship means they pay you to do your qualifications and they pay you to work. And as a 16-year-old, I had plenty of sweets to buy. So I went for the cash option and went underground. So yes, it was random, but that kind of what took me underground, really.
Yeah. And as you said, then the mine did close down soon after. So just over 4 years in the coal mine and a year and a half in the potash mine then. So yeah. Cool. So we'll move on to a slightly more serious question now. Someone said, thank you for being so open and honest. What would you suggest to a new Christian to help them become confident in their identity as a believer? What would you suggest to a new Christian to help them become confident in their identity as a believer?
Yeah, again, great questions coming through. Do you know what? I think it's really important to self-feed and to kind of get feeding from others. So I think getting involved in a Christian community is really important, so you can have that, encouragement, isn't it? The Bible says, don't neglect meeting together, to spur each other on, encourage. So for a new Christian, I say, get yourself involved in Christian community where you can be encouraged by others, those who have walked with Christ longer and can pass on that maturity. But also as well, self-feed. The word of God is there to be read. It's useful to teach us, isn't it, to how to live lives for Jesus. And so I'd encourage them two things. Do your own reading, go to the source yourself, get involved in. There's great Bible studies. We're spoilt these days, and we YouVersion, the Bible app. There's great studies you can type in specifically, seeking identity and really grapple for yourself with God's word, and ask him. God's a relational God. He wants us to chat things through and just ask, oh God, help me as I wrestle with your word, help me just understand this for myself. Help me see what this means for me. So I definitely would kind of encourage them two things, self-feed, but also get involved in Christian community. I think both them things are important for any one of us to keep maturing in our life for Jesus, really.
Yeah, that's great. And if whoever asked that question's in the Abergavenny area, you're welcome to join us at Cornerstone. We're having a service in person in a COVID secure way next Sunday. So if you go to our church website, which is abercec.org, and then there's a contact us button on there, so you can get in contact to book to come to one of our church services. And also, Lloyd mentioned about reading the Bible. If you're someone who's watching this and you've never read the Bible, but you'd like to, you're interested in Christianity, you're interested in finding out more about Jesus, then go to our website, abercec.org, and we'd love to get a Bible into your hands so that you can read that, and we'd love to speak to you about that and any other questions that you might have that aren't touched on this evening. So do get in touch. We'd love to hear from you. So we've got another question. What advice would you give to Christian parents with regard to their children getting involved in Sunday training and matches?
Yeah, I tell you what, I knew that one would come up, but James, it gets asked every time. My advice would be, for each parent, I'm not a parent, so I haven't come across that challenge for myself. My advice would be, again, we need that stability, don't we? It's almost like the question before, we need Christian community, so we know that God's created us for worship, to use our gifts and abilities to worship him. And some people that's been, sport has been given. But we also need Christian community. We also need to not neglect meeting together. We need to be grown in that. I think sometimes, it's hard when maybe the only opportunity for kind of Christian community is maybe a Sunday morning that the clashes then with sport and that kind of space to play sport. But to be honest, a lot these days, I'm sure like yourselves, there's, especially with how the church has really expanded and adapted during lockdown, isn't it? There's evening services, there's midweek groups, there's stuff like you're putting on tonight. So I think, it's becoming less and less of this one space for Christian community and one space for sport to kind of meet. And what do we do? I think, I would just go, encourage your children if the sport is worship just as much as, coming to church and singing is and communal. And it's your heart ultimately, isn't it? I know I'm waffling a bit. I suppose I'm just thinking what comes to mind. I think if I had to have the choice, I know there's times I've gone to church with the wrong heart, and there's times I've gone to play rugby with the wrong heart. I had not kind of as in with my children. I haven't got any, but I remember doing the World Cup. If you remember, Wales got to the semi-final, and it was on a Sunday morning, wasn't it? So many questions. What do we do? Do we watch the semi-final, or do we go to church? And I answered the question rightly or wrongly like this. I said, well, look, if you're going to stay at home and watch the rugby and feel guilty, the whole time, you're not going to enjoy it. So you might as well be in church, because your heart is obviously to be in church. But if you're going to come to church and you're not listening to anything, focusing on anything, because your heart is, I wish I was back home watching the rugby, you might as well watch the rugby. because ultimately it's a heart thing, isn't it? So same with Sunday morning sport, if your heart is to worship, we can worship in sport and in community. But hopefully these days there's great facilities and great programs the church has got that we can do both. We can encourage, our children, our friends to get involved in sport and be a witness for Jesus there and worship Jesus to their abilities, but also be regularly in Christian community to build each other up. So long-winded, James. Not sure if they're happy with that answer, but yeah, that's where I go with it.
Yeah, no, I was down the front when it was that Sunday in the World Cup, and there were definitely a few people in the congregation looking down at their phone. So
yeah, on the phone.
That was definitely going on there.
Yeah.
Cool. So one more question. Someone said, what's been the biggest challenge in your work with Christians in sport during the pandemic and with much less sport being played?
Yeah. No, you're right. For me, as one of the regional workers, so like I say, majority of my time in Christian sport is working in the adult world of competitive sport and the regional stuff. And to be honest, yeah, during lockdown, from last year, a lot of us regional staff were furloughed because local sport wasn't there. The local church is God's vehicle for discipleship. Christians in sport exists to come alongside the local church, champion the local church, and work through the local church to help sports people, navigate the challenges of sport. So with that gone, it was really quiet on the regional front. But then in terms of the elite work, really flew and was busier than other seasons because a lot of the elite athletes face different challenges in pro sport, timetables and schedules, and all of a sudden you just found that you didn't have to kind of wait around the stadiums for different schedules because everyone was online and Zoom just boomed, didn't it? It's just been great to be able to regularly get Christian athletes involved in performance sport together, just to read the Bible, to build each other up. So that area of the work has continued through lockdown and been going strong, and been really encouraged to be able to keep supporting those facing the pressures of elite sport, especially with a lot of them having to go into bubbles, a lot, very different for pressures for them. So to be there to navigate and support them, and that has been brilliant. But quieter regional wise. We look forward now, don't we, with sport. The golf courses are back open, tennis clubs, running clubs. So I'm sure there'll be a busy few months ahead, and summer camps are back on this summer, residential camps. It's going to be busy as a regional worker, no doubt, from kind of May right through to the summer.
Cool. So just on that, have you noticed this year more in the elite sport world who are kind of struggling with identity, with mental health, maybe as the pandemic developed, reaching out, looking, searching, maybe?
Yeah, you face, it's difficult sometimes, because you see people involved in performance sport and elite sport again, or living the dream. Look at that, but sometimes don't see the hard side of it. A lot of elite sport kind of had the go ahead to remain, didn't it, to almost give us all something maybe to watch on TV and stuff. But the pressures of being in bubbles, going away, not seeing family, not being able to see friends, and there's a lot of only the Six Nations, I suppose we can recall on that coming as the last kind of big sporting event we've all been watching. And just to see the social media abuse players are having, when things go wrong, human beings really just doing what they're good at and fortunate to do that at a good level. A lot of sacrifice going on behind the scenes. And then, it is a serious cauldron for this identity, acceptance and performance. So, to be able to come again and open the Bible with those to reaffirm that identity in Jesus has been something that, really thankful for the opportunity to do.
Yeah, that's really helpful. I think we often, like you say, we just see them getting to play sport while we're all stuck at home. But the reality behind that is having to stay in a hotel room by themselves for weeks at a time, away from their family and all that kind of stuff. It must be really challenging. Well, that's all the questions that we've had, and we're pretty much out of time. So Lloyd, thank you so much for being with us this evening, for sharing with us. It's been really great. If there are people watching who are Christians that do sport, how can Christians in sport support them? What can they do to get involved with Christians in sport and benefit from the work that you guys do?
Yeah, no, fab, James. Well, like we said, Christian sport, the mission's never changed to reach the world of sport for Christ. And that, all ages. And I suppose if people want to get involved, James, as you know, we'd love to see Christian sports people within local churches, gathering together to intentionally pray and think about how you can reach the world of sport in your area. So, if anyone's watching, in Abergavenny and connected in, James, I'm sure you're the man to get in touch with, because wouldn't it be awesome as we see groups of Christian sports people across Wales, in the local church meeting now and again to pray and think about reaching out. The impact that could have on the world of sport, and that's my joy, to be able to come alongside you and serve you and support you in that. So I'll signpost them to you, James, and you're gonna pass it up to me then when the contacts come in.
That's great. Yeah, and let me just reiterate again, you don't have to be the next Shane Williams or George North to get involved with this. If you just have a friend that you go for a run with, we'd love to chat to you about how we can support you. So do get in touch with me or via the church website if you don't know me or how to get hold of me directly. And let me just say again, if you have got more questions because of what you've heard tonight, then get in contact via our church website. We'd love to give you a Bible or some other books. We've got other books that you can read that will tell you more about Christianity and the Christian faith. So go to our website, abercec.org, and click on Contact Us, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. So we're basically out of time. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Thank you for watching. Again, big thank you to you, Lloyd. It's been great chatting to you.
Thank you.
The walking Welsh stereotype, and we can't wait until we get to watch you and your dear wife on bargain hunt in the near future. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Have a great evening.